Hi, this is Dr. Gretchen Lewis Snyder, and I'm here with Dr. Carla Berkeley. We're with Blossom Whole Family Therapy and Child Psychology Center. Carla and I want to talk to you today about a presentation that we did originally with Mount Olivet Lutheran Church, our community partner, that we did, and Dr. Paige Nelson was also part of that presentation. It was the second in a three-part series on managing stress and building resilience. And this part two is going to be focused specifically on building resilience. So let's just talk a little bit. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what is it exactly that allows people to be resilient? What are their characteristics?
Too often we talk about stress first, don't we? But when we did talk a little bit about how resilience is connected to stress our first day. But today we really want to focus on the resilience piece. What can we do to build some of our own resilience, and how can we support others in doing that? You can see 6 blocks here, right, Gretchen, and we're going to be getting into each one of these. Let me just read them so that if you're listening to this, you can hear a little taste of what we're going to be talking about today. Resilient people, we know, are self-aware. That's a big one.
It is a big one. It really is, because how do you do anything different unless you're aware of what you're currently doing?
Yeah, not as easy as it sounds.
No,
either.
Not at all. Not even a little.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about that and actually doing some fun exercises to increase our self-awareness. Enlisting your support team. Connections. I mean, we just know that from research shows it. I mean, anywhere you look, it really is shown. People who are connected are resilient and healthy and actually live longer. And I can even think right now of some connections about people that you just want to go and hang out with or talk to.
Totally. You come away from them feeling energized.
Right.
You've literally drawn strength from them.
That's right. And the bonus is you're increasing your own resilience and theirs. When you do that.
That's right.
Important one, take care of your biology. Wow, that cannot be understated.
No, it cannot. It cannot. I can't even tell you how often I talk to people about biology.
Yeah. So
sleep, exercise.
That's right.
Right, all that good stuff.
Yes. Along with that, having a self-care toolkit. So not only those basics of sleeping, eating, exercise, breathing.
Right.
But what else can you put in that self-care toolkit? So we're going to be talking about that, and actually also having some resources at the end of the presentation that people can go to to start building pieces to that toolkit that resonate with them.
That resonate with them and that suit them. Absolutely. Yep.
Now the next one is a little surprising to some people, to help others.
I know, it is.
So how do you use that to build your own resilience?
Well, as anyone who's helped others, and we all have, right? When you come away from that experience and you see the impact that you've had on someone else, the positive impact you've had on someone else, we automatically feel good.
Absolutely. And we'll see later in the presentation that some big names like Gandhi talked about that as well. But being kind, understanding that self-awareness and helping others really goes a long way towards building resilience.
And I'm sure people can appreciate how in their heads they get when they're caught up in stress. So one of the other major things that helping others does is it gets you out of your head.
That's right.
Altogether, and have your attention focused on someone else that actually feels really good.
It does. And it takes you away from thinking, I have to build my own resilience and just doing.
Right, and just do. Yep.
That last one, do not have all the answers. Those resilient people do not have all the answers.
How can that be?
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, all right. The physiology of stress. This is really interesting because I know you talk about this with the kids that you work with as well quite a bit. About the physiology of stress, what's actually happening inside of our bodies, because we certainly feel and experience sensations when we are stressed. Like our body speaks to us.
That is so true. That mind-body connection, really the focus of our first podcast. Yep. So we talked about it at length there, but we bring it back because what we know is this physiology and understanding those connections, how your mind, the stress you feel, the frustration affects how your body is acting, right? Or not acting. Yep. And the same way also, if you're dealing with illnesses, if you get headaches, those kinds kinds of things can really have an impact on how we're feeling mentally and emotionally.
That's right. Yeah. So this clip, the technology, the way that we record this doesn't allow us to actually play the clip within this, but it's a 2-minute clip about why stress is good for you, which is like, what?
Yeah.
But it's good because it includes a little bit of that physiological piece. It talks about how the amygdala, right, hits the alarm button, and all the physiological things that are happening within our body when we're under stress, and how when you take on those small challenges, what you're really doing is building your frontal lobe, your prefrontal cortex, which is your problem-solving center. And so taking on those challenges and experiencing the emotion and the sensation that goes along with it and working through it in a healthy way does build your resilience. You become stronger, more able to manage the other things that come up. So then smaller things that come up are like, they're no big deal. They no longer trigger that alarm. It's like you've gotten used to being able to handle that stuff. And so
that's really the key to understanding why stress can actually be good to you.
That's right.
It be good for you. It can really help you develop those ways of handling the stress, all those emotions and feelings and frustrations you feel, and get them out of that alarm part of your brain, that amygdala, and get them all the way up into the frontal lobe, where we can really start thinking about good decision making.
That's right. Yep. So when we think about, we talked a little bit about the self-awareness, but really self-awareness and self-care, I kind of think of them as being two sides of the same coin, right? You can't do one without the other, because, and so you have to develop an ability to be self-aware, and that's really important. So, and so we'll talk about this in the context of the big picture sorts of things. So, our biology and our relationships, but also in this presentation, we're going to talk about in the moment, in those critical moments of stress, where maybe you're in the middle of a conflict, maybe you're in the thick of a specific stressor.
Yeah.
What in those situations can be helpful, help you regulate your emotions, and help you with the way in which you're interacting with others in those key hot moments.
That's right. So both of those things, both the big picture about self-awareness and self-care, how they work together, and also in the moment.
That's right.
Which so many of us need help on.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's think about biology. Now, we really can't think about stress and resilience without talking about biology, like we said at the beginning. Here we lay it out as 4 different components.
Right.
Really, these are all intertwined, aren't they? We talked a lot about whether we should put sleep before eat.
Right.
And who knows, right? It's a flip of a coin again. Right. But what we know is that all of these pieces affect that physical part of our body, which relates to the mental part of our body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sleep, my goodness, such an important part of what we need to think about every day.
Yes.
I always love how you talk about not how much sleep we need, but how much sleep deprivation we can handle.
That's right.
How does that work again? Right.
So I go back to this, we as professionals do all this continuing education training, and I went to one that was a doctor that was very involved in sleep research and worked in a sleep lab. And she talked about how in lab conditions, which, no one lives in a lab condition, right? But they could create it, and all of the sleep issues are dealt with effectively, that adults settle into about 8 hours, and it was some weird number of minutes, like 13 minutes of sleep, 8 hours and 13 minutes specifically. That
all adults.
That in those lab conditions, that's what and there was no variation. There's never no variation.
Right.
There's no variation. But what we vary in is how well we tolerate sleep deprivation. So I know there's a lot of you out there that tolerate sleep deprivation well. And I know there's a lot of you out there that are like, oh no, I don't tolerate. And I am one of those. I don't tolerate sleep deprivation very well at all. And so it's just interesting to really think about it that way, because sometimes I think we underestimate the importance of sleep, or we feel like that's what can give, when we're stressed, if we're pressing up against a deadline, like somehow it's okay to sacrifice sleep in order to meet that deadline.
Doesn't everyone do that? I certainly do. And then you feel the effects of it the next day. And guess what? Others do as well.
Others
right?
do as well.
That impatience,
Yes.
the difficulty handling those small bits of stress we were talking about earlier,
right?
All of those pieces.
I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but one of the things when we did this with our community partner Mount Olivet is we broke off the youth into separate, and that's what Dr. Paige Nelson did. That we are actually doing a podcast separate that's specifically for youth, so the tween and teenage. And I love the analogy that she uses, which is that this is like us charging our devices, right? Eat, sleep, move, breathe. That's charging your device. If you don't have a charged device, it's not going to function the way you want it to, right? It's a problem.
That's right, and that does happen to all of us.
That's right. Totally.
So you can imagine how that impacts the other things we're talking about here. Eating, so the importance of getting protein in the morning to get us going, to fitting in those veggies throughout the day, and to really figure out what fuels your body the best. Moving.
Yeah.
Exercise. This means lots of different things to lots of different people, but what it means is get moving.
That's right.
We put it that way.
Right. That's exactly right.
And we know that you can integrate that, can't you? You can
Absolutely.
You can get up and do 10 minutes here and there.
You absolutely can. I personally like kind of the twofers and even the threefers. So if you go for a walk with a friend, like you've hit exercise and you've hit connection with others, right? All in once. You bet. There's all kinds of ways of doing that. And then if you walk in nature with a friend, which we haven't talked a lot about being in nature, but that is another piece that is shown to be really effective. So then you've got a threefer.
That's right. And I would say that breath, being in nature for breathing, it almost like refuels that.
That's right.
Good breath tank.
So think about that. You could walk in nature for 10 minutes with a friend, and you hit 4.
Awesome.
You hit 4 of the things.
I think that's what I'm going for.
Right? Totally.
Yeah. All right.
So in the heat of the moment then, in the heat of the moment, we talked about the big picture, but when the actual stressor is happening, where do you notice that your attention goes? What's going through your mind? What emotions are rising to the surface? How big are those emotions? How intense are they? And then what are you doing to help yourself in those moments? Are you doing the things that are actually helpful, or are you kind of in that reptilian brain where you're just simply react?
Yeah.
Because there's a difference between reacting and responding.
And what that video we talked about earlier, the stress and physiology, it told us is that we really are often in that early brain.
That's right.
It goes straight to our alarm center when we're feeling stressed. And that in the moment self-awareness can help us remember that tells us fight or flight.
That's right.
Which is not usually the answer or what we need to be thinking about at the time. So that self-awareness and practicing some of that with some of the exercises we'll be doing later really will help us move our emotions and our ability to make decisions from that alarm center into the frontal lobe, that smart part where we're really thinking about healthy.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I know, if you guys watched part 1, the podcast that we had from part 1, this should look familiar, right? This triangle, this connection between the way we think, the way we feel, and what we do. This is the foundation of that self-awareness, right? Because we need to pay attention to that. We need to pay attention. And then in the first one I had a mind tricks. I thought I better include one again in the second. So, when you look at this, what do you see? What do you see? Some of you are probably right away spotting the duck. Some of you are probably right away spotting the rabbit. And then I say duck and I say rabbit. And if you saw the rabbit, you maybe are seeing the duck, or you're maybe being really confused right now.
That's right.
Because it's actually both.
I love mind tricks because I think mind tricks reminds us of all of these ways our mind plays tricks on us every single day.
That's exactly right.
And that awareness, that self-awareness will not only give us the way to see a different perspective, like you're showing us with the duck and the rabbit.
That's right.
But also to recognize that just because we're thinking of something in a certain way, have one perspective, means that, hey, we can change that, right? When we start thinking about healthy decision making.
Yes.
We can make it work for us.
We can make it work for us. That's exactly right. Yep.
So thoughts and actions can all be mutually
connected. That's right. And somehow I inadvertently clicked it twice, and it's
That's
not
all
going to
right.
let me go back. But that's okay, because the slide that got fast forwarded through is the mind tricks, right? And again, we talked about this the first session, but just to remember, that perfectionism, right? That sort of all or nothing sort of thinking. These are the sorts of barriers that get in the way of us being really responding effectively in those situations, being pessimistic about the outcomes, believing that there's going to be some, horrendous catastrophe if things don't happen just so.
That all or nothing.
That all or nothing thinking. Yes.
Personalizing, that's a hard one for me. Not taking it personally.
Oh my gosh, so hard. Or blaming others. It kind of can work both ways.
That's right. And not seeing your kind of action upon
Yes.
that. And tell me about your shoulding,
I know.
Gretchen.
There's this therapist that I knew once. That was what he used to say. Don't should on yourself or anybody else.
That's right. And so often we do.
And so often we do,
Yes.
right? We set those expectations of what we believe is, should happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it doesn't, we're really disappointed or frustrated and upset about it. And in reality, it maybe wasn't a realistic expectation to begin with.
That's right. So what is healthy thinking? How do we go from some of these mind tricks to healthy thinking?
Well, again, when we are feeling that stressed out, we're often dealing in guesses and assumptions. We're focused on what's out of our control. And oh my gosh, how many people put tons of energy into trying to control what's out of their control? I mean, don't we drive ourselves batty with this?
Absolutely.
Totally. We do. And so it's like, again, it's self-awareness. Is that where you're at right now? Because if it is, that's not what's helpful. That's not going to help you respond effectively. And so what you can do once you've realized that that's where your brain has taken you is that you can reroute it. You can, on purpose, take your attention and move it back to what's helpful. What is actually true? What are the facts without filtering the facts out? Mm-hmm. The big picture. What's the big picture? What's factual? What's true? And then what are the things that are actually within your control? Mm-hmm. What's in your control? It could be that this is a solvable problem. If so, again, get out of your head and get down to the business of solving problems. It may not be a solvable problem. And so again, stop beating your head against the wall, working to change something that's not, and instead learn how to accept that is what it is.
That's right. So I know with, once we go to the next slide, which talks about problem solving, this is a lot of what we talked about with youth.
Yes.
During our session.
That's right.
But we included it here so that you can see that there's kind of a step-by-step that goes along with problem solving.
There really is. And I'm really only going to talk about the first one because honestly, the rest of it falls into place once you do the first step well. That's the reality. And it seems really obvious, but what is the problem? Answer that question. What is the problem? And why is the problem a problem? What is making it a problem? Like what really, this is the investigative step. This is where you really have to get to your fact collecting and you need to get specific.
So are you making the claim that we don't always think about the right problem?
I am making that claim. I am making that claim. It's true. Like, okay, we can't get out of the door in the morning. That's the problem. Okay, well, think about all the things that need to happen in order to get out the door. Any one of those could be what's tripping you up, or any combination of those could be what's tripping you up.
So that all or nothing thinking doesn't always work.
That's right. Because what people sometimes do is then they start to think of solutions that don't actually address the problem that's the problem.
Yes. Absolutely.
And then it doesn't work. And then we get frustrated. Well, that doesn't work. Well, that doesn't work. Well, that didn't work because it wasn't the right solution. The solution didn't fit the problem that you actually have. So take the time and really think about what is causing the problem. What are the contributors to that problem? Because as soon as you start to do that, the rest of this stuff, what can I do about it? What's the best idea? That all falls into place. All falls into place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, just test it out. I like to test things out because we know. And then what happened? Not did it work? Because did it work is all or nothing. It's a sneaky little all or nothing thought. Mm-hmm. It's not did it work. It's, what actually happened? What went well? What didn't go so well? And what can we do to tweak it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so now let's look at self-care. We know that self-awareness that we just finished talking about and self-care are so related.
Right.
But actually, this is the fun part.
This is. Yes, this gets more.
So what we decided to do in this podcast, which we didn't quite get to in our conversations out in the public because there's so much information.
Right.
Is really to offer some strategies specific to self-care so that you could try them out with us.
That's right.
See how they resonated.
Yes.
So we're going to be going over, you see here, mindfulness, getting creative with changing activities, connecting with others, and enlisting support. But to do that, we're going to jump right into a mindfulness meditation activity.
All right. This is so great. So let's see. Even Homer Simpson can relax, right?
So that means we can all do it too.
That's right. If Homer can do it, absolutely.
So you saw we will be adding a resources section like we talked about earlier at the end of this podcast, and you saw a link on the previous slide for a loving kindness meditation. But I am going to take us through an actual meditation script.
Yes.
That is yet another thing available on the internet. This one is actually from Emma Seppala, who's the science director of Stanford University's Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education.
All right.
So this is a guided meditation. I'm going to talk you through it just to give you a sense of what it is, but really, if you have the time now, it's a wonderful way to just be calm, be mindful, have some of that self-awareness like we talked about before, but really marrying it with self-care. So I'd like you to find a good mindful body position. What does that mean? That means if you're walking, continuing to walk meditatively is wonderful. If you're sitting, it means sitting up, getting your back straight and your feet on the floor if possible. That allows us just to breathe smoothly, start getting aware of what's around you. That's a wonderful way to sit. If you're lying down, that's okay. You can lie on your back and find ways to stretch out your body. Any of those things. So let's get started. Close your eyes. Sit comfortably with your feet flat on the floor, your spine straight. Relax your whole body. Keep your eyes closed through the whole visualization and bring your awareness inward. Without straining or concentrating, just relax and gently follow the instructions. Take a deep breath in, breathe out. Take a deep breath in, breathe out. Keeping your eyes closed, think of a person close to you who loves you very much. It could be someone from the past or the present, someone still in life or who has passed. It could be a spiritual teacher or guide. Imagine that person standing on your right side, sending you their love. That person is sending you wishes for your safety, for your well-being and happiness. Find the warm wishes and love coming from that person towards you. Now bring to mind the same person or another person who cherishes you deeply. Imagine that person standing on your left side, sending you wishes for your wellness, for your health and happiness. Feel the kindness and warmth coming to you from that person. Now imagine you are surrounded on all sides by all the people who love you and have loved you. Picture all of your friends and loved ones surrounding you. They are standing, sending you wishes for your happiness, well-being, and health. Rest in the warm wishes and love coming from all sides. You are filled and overflowing with warmth and love. Now bring your awareness back to the person standing on your right side. Begin to send the love that you feel back to that person. You and this person are similar. Just like you, this person wishes to be happy. Send all your love and warm wishes to that person. Repeat the following phrases silently. May you live with ease. May you be happy. May you be free from pain. May you live with ease. May you be happy. May you be free from pain. Now focus your awareness on the person standing on your left side. Begin to direct the love within you to that person. Send all your love and warmth to that person. That person and you are alike. Just like you, that person wishes to have a good life. Repeat the following phrases silently. Just as I wish to, may you be safe. May you be healthy. May you live with ease and happiness. Just as I wish to, may you be safe. May you be healthy. May you live with ease and happiness. Now picture another person that you love, perhaps a relative or a friend. This person, like you, wishes to have a happy life. Send warm wishes to that person. Repeat the following phrases silently. May your life be filled with happiness, health, and well-being. May your life be filled with happiness, health, and well-being. Now think of an acquaintance, someone you don't know very well, and toward whom you do not have any particular feeling. You and this person are alike in your wish to have a good life. Send all your wishes for well-being to that person, repeating the following phrases silently. Just as I wish to, may you also live with ease and happiness. Just as I wish to, may you also live with ease and happiness. Now bring to mind another acquaintance toward whom you feel neutral. It could be a neighbor, a colleague, someone else you see around but do not know very well. Like you, this person wishes to experience joy and well-being in his or her life. Send all your good wishes to that person, repeating the following phrases silently. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be free from all pain. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be free from all pain. Finally, expand your awareness and picture the whole globe in front of you like a little ball. Send warm wishes to all living beings on the globe who, like you, want to be happy. Just as I wish to, may you live with ease, happiness, and good health. Repeat this silently. Just as I wish to, may you live with ease, happiness, and good health. Take a deep breath in and breathe out. And another deep breath in and let it go. Notice the state of your mind and how you feel after this meditation. When you're ready, you may open your eyes.
That was really nice.
Can you just feel the difference?
Right. Getting, I love it because it's the giving and the receiving both.
Absolutely.
That back and forth.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about it briefly at the beginning, that kindness toward others is part of our own self-care, and that research really shows us how that bolsters our resilience.
Yes. And also just the change in thinking, right? When you go into that kind of a meditation where it's really focused on similarities between people and that truth about how we really at our cores have similar needs and wants and desires.
That's right.
Yeah.
Especially helpful in today's climate, isn't it?
Sure.
Those connections.
For sure. Yep. All right. So we just kind of want to take a pause here and kind of facilitate and guide you into thinking, getting into a self-reflective place. So we've talked a bit about biology. We've talked a bit about the way that we think. We got a little taste of some meditation. So, given what we've talked about so far, is there any area of self-care that you want to improve? Think about starting with something that is meaningful to your life, and think about it being a reasonable and achievable goal.
So this isn't start running 5 miles a day.
Correct. If you are not exercising at all, or your exercise is really limited, setting a goal of exercising 5 days a week may not be realistic. So, really be truthful truthful with yourself and honest with yourself about what's realistic in your life, given what's going on, and thinking about something is better than nothing. Anything that you do is a movement forward. And so again, staying out of that all or nothing thinking.
Right.
And just picking someplace to start.
Yeah. And I talk a lot to people about this kind of mindfulness idea and these meditations or mindful eating, whatever it might be. And really talking to people about how we took, 10 minutes there, maybe just a little less. That's totally enough. Maybe it's even 5 minutes. Maybe it's integrating it into your day while you're walking to the next thing you need to do, or while you take a pause, while you're waiting in your car to do something.
Right.
So it really can be small but meaningful to you.
It really can be. And I mean, it could be as little as 1 minute that you're focused on your breath. I mean, I think.
Right. Absolutely.
It's
those breath. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so choosing something that is important to you, thinking about why it's important to you, thinking about what's the reason you want to pick that, what is it about that is really of value to you, because motivation is important. So when you explore the reason that's the thing you're picking, and you imagine what it would be like if you were actually doing that thing and achieving that goal, right, and you're thinking about what would be some advantages of that, it helps you get into that place of being active and moving forward with your change.
So even though a friend might be going on the best diet in the world, doesn't mean you need to.
That's right.
That's right.
That's exactly
Or not necessarily a diet, but a change in how they approach life.
That's right.
It needs to be meaningful to you.
To you.
So really clarifying your own values is a great way to do that.
It's a great way to do that. And then too, thinking about what does get in your way. Because let's face it, if it were easy to go exercise 5 days a week, or to have a meditation practice, or whatever your goal is, you would already be doing it.
Right. Absolutely. And sometimes those barriers aren't just in your mind. They're actually legitimate. They're difficult to find the time,
day-to-day logistics,
energy to do that.
Yep. And so really looking at that, and because I think it's a combination. It says identify excuses, and we all know what we're talking about there, right? But also legitimate barriers, as Carla was saying, and thinking about both of them and starting to do some problem solving about those.
Right.
Problem solve, stick with it, follow through.
Yeah.
Which again, this is why, back to the top, it's so important to pick something reasonable.
That's right.
Because you'll lose steam otherwise.
Yeah. And maybe even that problem solving, I think back to when you said, are you focusing on the problem that's the actual obstacle or whatever stumbling block.
Right.
So really figuring that out. So maybe sitting down with a friend, talking about this, or really doing some self-reflection like you started out with.
So if that's something, it can be helpful. If you want to just hit pause and do that right now while it's all top of mind and fresh, feel free to do that. Sit down, make some notes for yourself, and really, really go through and do that.
Start small.
Start small.
All right, so one of the things that we are continuing with is this idea that connections with others is so important for both our self-awareness and our self-care.
It is.
So we just talked about the exercise of self-reflection. Now, some of you might have done that yourself or planning to. Some of you might do it in the company of others. Sometimes a friend is just the kind of person you need to have some of those ways to uncover motivations, awareness of what would be helpful for you, and some self-care. Having a buddy for self-care is really helpful.
It's super helpful. It really is. Absolutely. So thinking about, this next section of slides, we're really kind of looking at, again, that interaction between self-awareness and effectively interacting with other people, and how to communicate in a healthy way and how to be a healthy person in any given interaction, particularly when the interaction is maybe conflictual, where emotions are hot, right? Those are the stressful situations that come to mind and people think about.
Which is kind of daily life, isn't it? But we really see that awareness of others and what they're thinking about is so important that we added in this piece on empathy.
We did, because this was not included in the original, but the more that you and I had kind of talked about it, and we're really trying to get at, what does make this hard for people? This theme of empathy kept bubbling up for us. And in fact, two really well-known psychologists, Dr. Robert Brooks and Dr. Sam Goldstein, have written a number of different books about raising resilient children and just generally being resilient. And they talk a lot about this concept of empathy. And they say empathy provides the strength to change negative scripts. So that's interesting. Empathy provides the strength to change negative scripts. And we all have those negative scripts in our head.
Yes.
Right? Those negative thoughts developed over time by all sorts of experiences. I mean, if you're a parent, do you have a memory of a kid saying, oh, when I'm a parent, I'm never saying that. I'm never doing that. And then you have this out-of-body experience when you're actually the parent. And,
that's right.
And it's like, oh, my mother just inhabited my body, right? And it's like coming out. It's the script. It's that negative script ingrained in your head that is coming out automatically. That there again, that self-awareness, right? Being able to recognize it and understand what it's like to be on the receiving end of some of those negative scripts. And that awareness really does energize you and motivates you to want to do it differently, because you know firsthand what some of those experiences are like to be on the other side of it. And so not wanting to, do that for others is really important.
Right. And that self-awareness of the fact that is a negative script that you're getting into is so important, isn't it? Yeah. And now we're thinking about it in terms of empathy as well. Like, how are we viewing that in terms of others?
And I think it's really easy, empathy. I think a lot of people, think of themselves as generally empathic. And I think a lot of us are when it's easy, right? When we get it, somebody experiences a loss. Okay, we can generate empathy very easily for that situation. Someone has some illness that befalls them, right? We can generate empathy really easily. But empathy is not so easy when we're in conflict, when we're angry, when we're living out those negative scripts that are ingrained. There really are situations where being empathic is challenging. It's really hard. Yeah. And I think it's important to just acknowledge when that's true for you. And that becomes something that you can think about how to improve, how to rewrite some of those negative scripts.
Absolutely. It almost feels like that's your obstacle, those scripts, because it stops you. What it does is it brings those angry feelings rushing in, right? Those difficult feelings, and that stops the process of really understanding others' perspectives, which is really how we build some of that empathy, empathic thinking.
That's right. And so you can imagine that if you were able to maintain an empathic stance, even in the midst of your, having those negative emotions, you can imagine the impact that would have on how you interact with people.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would totally change the dynamic. It would totally change the dynamic.
Well, I can certainly remember times when I've been talking with friends or even just colleagues who you think, they get me.
Right. That's right.
They get it. They get what I'm saying.
And it feels good.
It feels
to be on the receiving end of that
absolutely
kind of empathic response.
Yes.
So in their books, they're really good about kind of putting these questions out there, these self-awareness, self-reflection kind of questions that help us get to that place, that help us understand ourselves well enough to be able to kind of get through it. So I love this.
I do too.
What words? So if we were to go interview people who knew you, and it could be your spouse. Right? And if you think about your partner, what words do you hope your spouse uses or your partner uses to describe you?
Or your best friend.
Or your best friend. Because it might not be the same. Your coworkers, your boss, your employees. They might not be the same words that you would pick for
That's
everybody.
Right.
So it can be interesting to kind of, do this exercise with the significant people in your life with whom you have important relationships, your kids.
Yeah.
This actually, they use this a lot with parents and their kids. What words would you hope your kids use to describe you? Okay?
Absolutely.
So really think about that. What specific words, what adjectives would you hope that people use to describe you? And then think about this. What do you do and say on a daily basis to inspire people to use those words? And this is where some people go, oh.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe there's a disconnect there.
Absolutely. So this is another great exercise. If you have a minute here, write down some words you hope people use to describe you. Then all of a sudden it's in front of you.
That's right.
And it's much easier to think about your actions in terms of those words and the way that you interact with others, and just to almost make that be some small steps toward some of this awareness.
So I would encourage you to do that. And again, hit the pause button if you need to, but also consider this, because this is a trap that some people fall into. And it's back to that healthy thinking slide. Are you focused on what you have control over or what you don't have control over? Because people will be tempted to say, well, yeah, but they blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
How can I possibly do, when they're doing, okay, but you can't control what they do. You can only control what you do.
That was that second piece in healthy thinking, wasn't it? That can you control? What can you do?
And so really be mindful of that. Be mindful of your mind's tendency to want to jump to places that are not so helpful, and bring it back to the place that is helpful.
So Gretchen, do you have any other tips for how to do this in a more impactful way? Since we can't control others, what can we do that will really help us?
Yes. And so here are a few more questions that you can think through. I love these too. Am I saying or doing things in a way that would allow someone to receive what I say? Sometimes we have to give people corrective feedback, right? We have to give them feedback that's hard to hear. So if that's the case, how are we delivering it? How are we using empathy to deliver that message? And are we doing everything that we possibly can to create a situation in which they are able to receive it? Now, it is their responsibility to hear it and make those choices, but are you doing everything that you can to create a scenario that makes it as easy as possible?
I can certainly think of situations where I just thought, no matter what that person would have said right then, I was not ready to hear it, right? It kind of makes you tense or defensive right away.
Yep.
And then on the flip side, same thing. The kind of conversation you have with some people, you think they could tell me anything.
That's right.
And I would think, oh, wow, that's a great idea, that all the things I need to do differently, right?
Yeah.
So really that awareness of how are you offering conversation, words, suggestions to others.
That's right.
So key.
And thinking about, and I love this too, because drawing on your own experience, that's your best source of information, is your own personal experience. So would you want someone to speak with you the way you're speaking? Would I want someone to speak with me the way I'm speaking? That's a really good self-check.
That sure is.
It's a good self-check.
Absolutely. Yep. And it doesn't, again, this is not all or nothing.
Right.
It doesn't mean that even in the midst of your conversations, you can't think, oh, wait, self-awareness.
Right.
Let's take a break.
Right.
And then actually we're going to go into it next. This idea of what is healthy communication about? What is active listening about?
Yep.
And so I'm really focusing on some of these skills we can learn and improve that really go along with this idea of empathy and being empathic.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right into that. This is called healthy communication. Guess what? An empathic stance facilitates healthy communication.
It totally does, particularly in that active listening bubble there.
That's right. Very true. So it seems like if you look at these bubbles, which is assertively speaking plus actively listening equals healthy and balanced communication. Okay, what do you think would be the easiest here? Listening, right? That's easy. Guess what?
Right.
This falls into another one of those. People know this,
right?
But how hard is it?
It's hard to implement. It's hard to implement when our negative emotions are evoked.
Right. Absolutely.
It's easy when somebody's telling you something that you can totally relate to, that you can be empathic to. It's easy to get into that space because it's easy to be empathic in that situation.
Absolutely.
But if you're hearing things that you disagree with, that go counter to your values, that perhaps your child is telling you and you're thinking in your head, they do what? You're doing what? You're right. And you're having this emotional reaction.
Yeah. You jump right into thinking that you need to tell them that.
Right.
Now, often people know some of these things.
Right.
It's just really practicing how to best communicate. So we're going to go through some of these situations, Gretchen. The first one is we're going to just talk about what assertively speaking is. Now, we spent quite a bit of time with youth on this because
Right.
we feel like this is something that develops as you get older,
That's right.
as you
Yes.
figure out how to have your own voice, right?
Yep.
But what we know is that assertively speaking is not easy even for adults.
Not.
So you can see here in this slide, we talk about assertively speaking in some steps or just reminders. Speak for yourself.
Yes.
Stick to the facts. Hey, that's back to our healthy thinking again.
It is back to the healthy thinking. Interesting.
Right. So here's some sentence starters and ways to do this in a healthy way.
Yep.
I feel blank because blank.
Yep.
That's assertively speaking.
It is assertively, and I can't. The because is actually really important.
Absolutely.
The because is important because it really it gives context to what you're saying.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right.
In all three of these examples, the because is important.
So when blank happens, I feel blank because blank.
Yep.
Finally, when you do blank or when you say blank, I feel blank because fill in the blank.
Right.
So really it's helping others, speaking with I statements and then helping others to understand why that is the case.
And being specific when you speak. So that's what helps you be factual is when you are specific.
Yes.
About, so not when you're a jerk, I feel mad because you're a jerk.
Absolutely. Yes.
That's tempting.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, when we're mad, but not helpful.
So we're going to jump into actively listening next. And this slide is just talking a little bit about what it is, just like we talked about assertively speaking. And then we're actually going to do another little exercise on actively listening.
Yeah.
So before we get there, let's think about active listening. You can see here we have kind of this model that looks at a neutral stance underneath and talks about reflecting, validating, and clarifying. So remember, you will get your turn to talk in healthy communication, right? You both assertively speak and you actively listen. So knowing as adults that reflecting does not necessarily mean that you agree with what someone's telling you.
That's right. It's a big fear, actually, that people have. It's what stops them from doing that part of active listening. They think that if I say, okay, so Carla, what you're saying is...
Yeah, that's right.
That somehow implies that they approve or that they agree.
That they agree. But in fact, what it really means is that you care about what the other person thinks.
Right. Okay. Who likes that? Who likes to, even if you're just, we've all been in situations where people don't agree with us. But if they're disagreeing in a way that's showing that they are hearing what we're saying, that they're taking in what we're saying, isn't that a situation that's easier? It sets easier with us?
That's right. I mean, it's respectful.
It's
right?
respectful.
It's empathic. It's understanding. So what you're really doing is that reflecting and validating and clarifying really means that you're actively listening to what the person is saying rather than formulating your own response to go back, right? We all have the experience of someone like biting back their words as we're talking, right? And that doesn't feel like you're being listened to.
Not at all.
It doesn't feel validating.
No.
So really being present for the person, doing these skills of active listening, reflecting, validating, clarifying is really just showing the other person your care.
That's right. Yep.
All right. So let's try this. Okay.
All right.
This is an active listening exercise. So what we want to do, you can see this slide here. We have a number of different blocks. These are things that I'm going to be talking about as I go through the active listening exercise that gives you cues on the pieces that are important in this exercise. Okay. So just to set this up, this can be something that you try right now as I'm talking through it, or that you set aside some time to try with a partner later. Okay. The time that we recommend for this is really to do at least 10 minutes because what you want to do is really be true to listening and offering enough time for the other person to communicate. And then back and forth, right? So you can have your turn. Try to make time for this practice at least once a week. Turns out if we don't practice it,
we don't get better at it. Who knew?
That's right.
Practice is important.
So how to do this? Find a quiet place where you can talk with your conversation partner without interruption or distraction. That might be the first obstacle.
Right. So do some problem solving.
That's right. Find what is really the problem here.
Do you ever find that scheduling the time can be a good strategy?
That is a good strategy. Just scheduling it. It almost kind of honors what you're practicing as well, right?
Yeah.
Invite him or her to share what's on his or her mind. Okay, because remember, you're practicing the active listening part. So your partner will be talking. As your partner does this, as he shares what's on his or her mind, try to follow the steps below. That's there listed on that slide. You don't need to cover every step, but the more you do cover, the more effective this practice is likely to be.
So it's not all or nothing.
Guess what? Again, not all or nothing.
Okay, good to know.
And remember, practice. So we are really finding our ways to these skills, to building some of these skills that really lend themselves to resiliency. Okay, so let's look at that top big block. Using engaged body language. Great one to start with.
It is.
So if I am kind of distracted and doing all kinds of other things while you're talking, right?
Yeah.
Do you think I'm really listening?
Right.
No, right? Show that you're engaged and interested by making eye contact, nodding, facing the other person, maintaining an open and relaxed body posture. So this also means like, okay, I'm counting down the time. You don't like get ready to leave right before. Avoid attending to distractions in your environment or checking your phone. It's a hard one.
It is.
Be mindful of your facial expressions.
Yes. This is actually really big because we are wired to watch people's faces and watch for those cues. And if there's a history in the relationship of certain facial expressions being connected to conflict, like it's going to, right?
Absolutely.
It's a barrier then to communication because the other person's already defensive and you haven't said a word.
That's right. How many times have you heard someone say to you, you always look that way when you aren't listening?
That's right.
Or, oh, I can tell you don't like this.
Right.
What?
Which is mind reading on their part. But again, you have some control over how you are presenting your body and how you're, what kind of a facial expression you're putting out there.
So try to avoid expressions that might communicate disapproval or disgusting, okay? Let's think about this next. So that's engaged body language. Taking turns. That's an important one. Now, this is part of the exercise because you want to do this back and forth, right? We want to develop empathy. So taking turns after the other person has had a chance to speak and you have engaged in the active listening steps that we're going to be going through right now, ask itself if it's okay for you to share your perspective. I like to talk about this one up front because it really makes people feel better to be reassured that they will have their turn to talk. So you don't have to show that you disapprove or that you disagree with your face.
Right.
You will have a chance to do that. That's part of the respectful communication. When you are sharing your perspective, express yourself as clearly as possible using those I statements. It may also be helpful when relevant to express empathy for the other person's perspectives. Such as, I know you've been very busy lately and you don't mean to leave me hanging. Right, okay? So that's taking turns. So let's just kind of quickly go through these other things. Expressing empathy. If the other person voices negative feelings, strive to validate these feelings rather than questioning or defending against them. Remember, it just means you care about the person.
Means you care. And I know many of us have had the experience where someone does this. Oh, that must have been so frustrating for you. Oh, of course you felt mad about that situation. Oh, it's just like, it's just this warm sort of...
Absolutely.
Right? Yes, thank you for hearing that, right? It feels good to hear that from people.
I feel like it almost dissolves some of those negative feelings.
It's like magical.
It's like it absorbs it.
Right.
So it's a wonderful gift to offer, and it's really quite magical in its the impact of it is.
The impact of it.
Yes. So an example of that is if the speaker experiences frustration, like Gretchen was saying, try to consider why they feel that way, regardless of whether you think that feeling is justified or whether you would feel that way yourself.
Yeah.
Were you in that position? you can say,
Mm-hmm.
I sense you're feeling frustrated.
Yeah.
Or even, I can understand how that situation would cause you frustration.
Yeah,
So
right.
being really specific to address that, not avoiding.
Right.
So paraphrasing. Once the other person has finished expressing a thought, paraphrase what he or she said to make sure that you understand, also to show you're paying attention.
That's right.
Yeah. Helpful ways to paraphrase include what I hear you saying is, it sounds like,
Yep.
If I understand you right.
Yep.
So those are really great ways to try to insert at least one of those phrases in.
The other benefit it has is that it actually helps, and again, you've maybe had this experience yourself, that when someone is doing that, it actually can help you as the speaker get clarity in your thinking. Because you hear it back and you're like, well, that is what I said, but actually now that I hear it back, I want to edit that a bit. I just, and then it helps them kind of get clarity, and that's helpful too.
Absolutely. So the final positive thing to remember is that ask questions. So encourage the other person to elaborate on his or her thoughts or feelings, avoid jumping to conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, ask to clarify. And then finally, on the bottom here of our slide, there's 2 avoids. One is avoid judgment.
Yep.
The other, avoid giving advice.
Right.
2 difficult things, 2 key ingredients to active listening.
Yep. I don't want them to fix it. I just want them to listen, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so great active listening activity. So we've gone over a number of things. So we've talked a lot about empathy and healthy communication. So now here again, let's take a step back and hit the pause button and really think about, is there anything in the area of empathy and or communication that you want to improve? And here again, starting with something small, meaningful, manageable, realistic kind of goals. Why is it that you want to make this improvement? Is there anything getting in your way? And if so, what? And then how do you overcome? What can you do? How can you kind of work through? What is it that you need in order to move forward with this goal?
Gretchen, do you often see people doing this more easily through verbally talking about it or written?
People are different.
Okay.
Listeners know themselves best. Do you tend to be a better, talk it through kind of a person, or do you tend to be good at writing? Both are very effective, and both can be very helpful. So I think it's really a matter of what has worked best for you in the past, what works, and also what's accessible to you at the moment.
At the moment, right, when you're in the middle, when you're ready to start thinking about this. And this is also something we can put on our resources sheet, right?
Yes.
We have kind of a 2-sided way to both kind of trigger these questions that we're talking about now, and also a way for you to start jotting down some ideas. Because I think in some ways, and maybe it's that these are steps.
Right.
You kind of talk about it, you mull it over, you think about it, and then maybe you write some things down to feel a little more accountable.
Right. So again, feel free to hit the pause button here and kind of get into this self-reflective kind of a place. And when you come back, we're going to talk a little bit more, or if you're staying with us, just more about that piece about enlisting support team and helping others. So, and it's interesting because both are important. You need to have a support team that you can call upon, but you also need to be part of other people's support team, because both are important and both feel good.
And that's kind of an interesting thing, isn't it, Gretchen? I think too often people kind of think of themselves maybe as one or the other.
Right.
Like, I'm the one who always listens.
Right.
But from our work and even just our own interactions with friends, family, our support team.
That's right.
We know that really you need both aspects.
You do need both. And it's so interesting because I'll ask, and because most people have had the experience of having people come to them for something, for some kind of help or advice or whatever. And typically people that feels good.
Yes.
Most people find that feels good. They feel like, wow, this person really sees me as a resource, sees me as someone with some authority, and it values my opinion. values my perspective.
Yeah.
It feels good.
It feels good. And it often gives you some ideas for some things that you might be able to use as well.
It does. But it's so interesting because sometimes those people that like to help others don't think about what that experience might be like for the people whose help they might enlist. And so what you're really doing when you are not accessing your support system is you're denying your support system the opportunity to feel all of those good things that you feel.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. Yeah, and actually, if you're not utilizing your friends really, or your support team in that way, they start to see maybe that relationship isn't quite as affirming for them, right? Balanced, and something that they seek out. So that mutual reciprocity, that talking back and forth is really helpful.
It is really helpful.
You know, the other thing it reminds me of, remember early on when we said that one of the core features of resilient people is that they don't have all the answers.
Right. They don't have all the answers. Which means they need to enlist their support system, and which facilitates the connection because resilient people are connected to others.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk more about that.
So enlisting your support team. Yeah. So we have these blocks here that kind of have these simple questions about why, when, who, what, how.
Yeah.
And that's really about this whole process of trying to understand when do you utilize those roles we just talked about? When are you the support? And when might you be helped by some other kind of listening and support? Who might do that?
Right. And you know, when we did this with youth, we actually spent a lot of time on this with youth because for youth, they're wanting to go to their peers very often, but some of the things that they're dealing with aren't peer. It's not peer material. It's not, and so for them, really understanding who and under what circumstances is important because there are certain things that they're going to need adult help for. They're going to need positive adults in their life from whom they can draw strength in order to be resilient themselves. And you may or may not have children if you're watching this. You may or may not have contact with youth, but you may have nieces, nephews. You know, you may be in a role where you're coming into contact with kids, and so it's possible that you could at some point be in a position to be that what has been called a charismatic adult, a person from whom others can draw strength, right? And so that's just something to think about because even if you're not a parent, you could be a strong, caring, supportive adult from whom other people, including youth, could draw strength.
Absolutely. And I feel like, I know we're going to talk a little bit about that in the next couple of slides about what exactly we learned from the youth and others about what is most helpful when someone is helping them and is that adult in their life or that friend in their life. But I also believe that it kind of gives us some insight about ourselves, doesn't it?
It does.
When we see what do people like about what we can offer them.
Right. Yep, exactly. So, so if somebody does enlist your help, what's helpful and what's not? You know, I hear kids that don't want to bring things to parents. I hear what they say almost first and foremost is that they don't want to have to manage their parents' emotions. Yeah. They don't want to deal with their parents' emotional reaction. They're already overwhelmed by their own emotions, which is the reason they're seeking out their parent in the first place. So if their parent is giving them all this emotion, all this emotional reaction, they're not only having to handle their own, they're having to handle their parents, and it's too much.
Yeah, and that actually might be the way that we really think about how this is different with youth or someone that's coming to you really seeking help and guidance rather than a friend, say, or your own support system. Because really that showing emotion holds there's a different reason why you would do that. Right. With youth, you want to kind of maintain that calm and be more neutral. Whereas with a friend, you might want to empathize.
Right. Well, and
in a different way.
Yeah. I think part of this is being empathic enough to understand who you're with.
That's right.
Right? And what it is that they really need from you at that moment in time. Not what do you need, but what do they need from you at that particular moment in time.
Really.
Because being outraged on someone's behalf can feel really good depending on who that person is, right? Or it could not be. It could just be adding. And so to be empathic enough to understand where this person really is at.
Right. Absolutely.
And leading with kind of calm and neutral if you're not sure. Leading with calm and neutral.
So that they can kind of guide you into what they need. What we heard from youth is things like you were mentioning before. Their stress affects mine. So if you respond with, wow, that must have been really stressful, what does that do to the youth? Raises that idea of, yeah, this is, right? And gets it into maybe what we call drama or, just feeling overwhelmed.
Right. Yeah. This is another, actually, this is not specific to kids. I hear couples this will be coming up in couples. Is don't rescue or solve the problem yourself.
That's right. Right? Instead, just acknowledge the person's feelings.
Just listen. Like, I think people this is a mind trick. They trick themselves into thinking if they aren't solving the problem, then they're quote unquote doing nothing. Without valuing the actual help that listening is actually active listening.
Right, that we just tried, we just practiced.
It's an action. It's actually, that is doing something.
Yeah.
It's actually can be doing something really powerful, something potentially more powerful than solving the problem.
Yeah. Giving someone the skills to be able to reflect, right? And think themselves, what are some options available for me?
Right.
And even just that, so that's what we've noted here on the slide, engaging the thinking brains, allowing the other person, guiding them through that process. Right. In a listening way. Right. Yeah.
That just really helps them think it through because that actually feels good, right? You've probably had that experience where you've had someone who is a really good listener, who asks thoughtful questions that gets you to think about things in a way you hadn't thought about them before. They didn't have to solve your problem. They just needed to help you talk it out.
Absolutely. And then all of a sudden you say to yourself, oh, this is what I could do. Yeah. So that modeling, that positive coping, that thinking about it, engaging the thinking brain.
Yes. All right. So this feels like a good time for another mindful exercise.
Yeah. So let's really think about ways that we feel connected to others.
Yes.
And we're going to pause now really to do a mindful exercise around that, both for our way of thinking about how to be intuitive and how to best help others.
Right.
But also how to best engage someone to be your support team, your listening partner. And I think equally important, as we've been talking about, that this exercise should allow you to do both. So here we go. This is called feeling connected. So the time required for this kind of exercise is about 10 minutes. You can do it in 5. Try to do this practice at least once a week. And during that time, you can select different examples, okay? The reason for that time and the frequency is really because that starts to make inroads and it builds that neural connections in your brain to really start to understand what does your support team allow you to do and allow others to do for you. Okay? So here's what you do. Let's just pause and think this as I talk through this. So first, try to think of a time when you felt a strong bond with someone in your life. Choose a specific example of an experience you had with this person where you felt especially close and connected to him or her. This could be a time you had a meaningful conversation, you gave or received support, you experienced a great loss or success together, either one, or you witnessed a historic moment together. Once you've thought of a specific example, it's time to transition to really strengthening that neural connection in your brain by writing about this experience. So we thought about it, maybe even visualized it.
Right.
Felt the emotions associated with that experience. Now we want to write about it. Because that builds connections in a way that we don't if we do the other pieces, right? There's so much fighting for attention in our brain that we want to write about this experience to give it a solid memory connection. So spend a few minutes writing now about what happened during that time of a strong bond. In your writing, particularly, consider the ways in which this experience made you feel close and connected to the other person. So more about the bond, the feeling of closeness and connectedness, why that was, what you did to get that feeling and that experience, even more so than the content. But the content will frame it for you. So that's the exercise.
It's really what I love about an exercise like this is that when you take the time to call those memories forth, it's not that different as actually living it again and having that in your life again.
Yeah.
And so, right, there is that power of your imagination to call forth that and experience it all over again, that positive, healthy connection. And I especially love it because the reality of the world we live in is that we don't always have a person to connect to at those critical moments, right? People are not sitting around at our beck and call waiting for us to have a moment that we need to feel connected, right? And so there are times that we just need to be able to feel that connection and we just need to be able to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
And what I love about this activity is that this is a way to do that. This is a way to get connected to another person, even if another person doesn't have it at that moment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's also a way to look back at what you write and to see, was it really about what I did, the action of asking the very right question, or was it about reflecting for them, being there? Was it that someone heard what you were feeling and allowed you to hold that feeling?
Was it about just being in the moment with them? Present.
I would guess that it probably was.
Yeah, I would guess so too.
Thanks for doing the exercise.
Yeah. Okay. So Gandhi.
Yeah. So Gandhi has such good wisdom.
He does.
Gandhi is telling us here, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Now, this is something that we attribute to Gandhi because this is how he lived.
Right.
And this brings us back to our points in the beginning. We're coming to the end now of our talk. And really, it's to draw us back to those traits of resilient people.
Right.
And one of which was to be kind and help others.
That's right.
And how interesting, we talked about it right at the beginning to say, we know. Research shows us that this is something that really, really builds the skills of resilient people.
Yeah.
And so this idea of helping others in what we just talked about with being part of their support team, but also to help them in many different ways, really gives us what we need to be resilient to the stress we all feel.
It does. And I know people know this because we've all been in a position where we have helped others. And there is something in what he's saying about finding yourself when you're so absorbed in the act of helping someone else.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
It is.
Yeah, it's really interesting. All right. There's a lot. There's a lot that we put out there to think about. So just again, kind of recapping that self-awareness, empathy, biology, connecting and communicating with others, enlisting help and helping others, thinking in a healthy way, problem solving, accepting, coping, right? We've covered a lot of ground.
That's right. We sure have. So I guess one way to just think about this summary is to use this in ways that will help you to think this through. We've tried to do some chunking and offering these resources in a way for you to access more easily. But one of the things we want to challenge you in doing with this summary is to look at in which areas are you already doing well. That kind of self-awareness of what are your strengths and what are some things you're doing well, and to build on those strengths. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm already doing that. I don't need to think about it anymore. But what we know is that if we build on our strengths, that kind of feeling of confidence, that feeling of confidence then pervades other areas and allows you to build skills much more easily and smoothly and really in a way that benefits you and others.
Absolutely. So thinking about, are there areas in which you want to do even better? Because my bet is that a lot of people are doing you're kind of doing things in each of these categories.
That's right.
And so it's not necessarily about building entirely new skill sets. It's really about taking what you're already doing and making it even better than it is right now. So again, any other areas, right? And you get into this sort of identifying and understand what is the reason goal. Why is this important in my life? Is there anything getting in my way? How do I overcome? I mean, that's sort of the foundation for how to keep moving forward. It's this sort of way of thinking: small, reasonable goals, meaningful in my life, impactful in my relationships, and problem solving your way through them. And persevering.
And I don't know about you, but I've noticed when I am working on something and I share that with others, it really feels like it's better received than to suggest to others that they focus on something, right? So one of the things that we like to talk about, Gretchen, is take your youth to Caribou. And, over coffee, as you asked them about school that day, and there was a one-word response. Instead of doing that tried and not true way of communicating, do something different like this. It doesn't mean you have to have your notebook all ready for them to fill out. But as you share some of the ways that you're working on kind of bolstering your resilience to stress, and however the words are that you use for that, the youth in your life your child, your niece, your student might see something in that allows them to take some perspective on what they want to work on. And you sharing some of the difficulties of that is an even better way to connect, isn't it?
It is. And part of the reason is because it gets out of that perfectionistic thinking, right?
That's right, that all or nothing.
That all or nothing. Because the reality is that, of course, you're going to have challenges. Of course, of course you're going to. And of course you're going to have to problem solve those. Of course it's not going to go perfectly the first time. Right? And that allows you the opportunity to really send and reinforce that message for them, their developing mind, and as they're developing their own mindsets that they're taking, into their transition into adulthood, that challenges and failures and mistakes are not problematic in and of themselves. It's really how do you respond to them.
That's right. And really, they're building blocks for success. We wouldn't get to where we're at in a healthy way if we haven't had experienced the things that didn't work for us, right? So really learning from that can be such a helpful way.
And let's just not forget some of the best things in life come from mistakes, such as chocolate chip cookies.
That's right, isn't it?
Potato chips, right? Post-it notes.
And who doesn't love a good story about an epic failure, right?
And in some cases that turns into some of the best things ever, right?
That's right.
So anyway, we hope that you guys have really taken some things away from this that you find helpful in your life. You've got some ideas for how to move forward and how to continue to build your own personal resilience, as well as facilitate that in any significant people in your life, whether it be youth or a partner or a spouse or friends. We wish you well as you move forward with this. And
thanks for joining our conversation. We look forward to our next podcast.
Yes.
Thanks.